morning, everyone. It's good to see you here this early on a Saturday morning. And today we're going to be talking about QA. My name is Leifur Björnsson. My dev name is Úlfur. And over here we have
I'm Hafþór. My dev name is Gangleri, and I'm an Eve tester.
I'm Kurt. I'm the new QA manager, and we'll get into a little bit later why we have two QA managers here. My dev name is Heimdall.
My name's Shane McCauley. I currently head the QA engineering team. My dev name is Lenorm. Right. Start with something a bit lighthearted. We have a couple of interesting things here for you.
So we're going to be sharing our greatest moments in QA with you guys now.
Got a nice, one of our early attempts to get someone to walk down a ramp. Seems very simple, but it just wouldn't understand it. You could be halfway between planes. It would slow down, it would do all sorts of really obnoxious things. At one point we even had it where if you clicked on the top, it would walk all the way up perfectly fine. If you clicked on the ramp, it just didn't like it. So that's enough for that one. It was just one of the few videos we had on that. Now, where did you go? Not that clear. This is a nice little corruption issue we had where all the text that was possibly in your client suddenly decided to make itself part of the background. Looks really, really cool and like spooky. Makes it really, really hard to see anything. Two towers at a moon. Lord of the Rings comes to Eve. This is one of our nice little testing towers, but I liked it because it's a little hard to read. But currently we have it fueled for somewhere around 25,000 days. Now the funny thing is that even according to our maths, that's wrong. It was only supposed to be 23,500. Missing parts of the ship. A really, really ugly looking Megatron. The textures have actually been applied out of order, which means you get really horrible textures. Missing damage locators, so the bullets and lasers just tend to go straight through things. Looks really cool, but it also caused problems with drawing it, because it tried to draw it into infinity. When your ship is damaged, i.e. has hull structure, you've got really, really obnoxious lines while warping. Text overlays and local channel, a little hard to see, but if you were using a link, it would tend to overwrite things below it. This one we've still got. Everyone who's got a POS should recognize this one. Multiple low fuel. Yeah. Save portrait. Right, send it off, get a passport. Again, structure damage while in warp. Now, can anyone tell me what's wrong with this one? We've got our 4 noob ships with their 3 rig slots and 1 calibration point. Removing an object, a gun, or any other high slot item that took ammo The nice little empty ammo thing wouldn't actually go. You stick your remote armor repair on it and it appears empty. This was a nice little bug to track down. It turned out that shooting a control tower caused more CPU than shooting a Titan. But we got that one fixed. A cloaked covert ops ship with a scanning radar still visible to everyone. Really lovely translations. Chinese client with an English error. Again, lovely German translation with the word anchoring right in the middle. Some of the teething problems of doing a multi-language system. The infamous capital shipyard that you can't actually fit in most of the freighters. English in the middle of a Chinese translation. Now that's some fingers. Right.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Kurt. I'm the new QA manager. We're actually splitting it into two departments. We'll get into that in a minute. But first, what is quality? What's a high-quality product? It's our main concern, making Eve a high-quality product. First of all, just in general, if you think about a product that you view as quality, why do you think that it's a quality product? Does that relate to number of features, lack of errors, the look and feel? What is it exactly that defines quality for you? Well, basically, it's a personal matter. What is quality to one person may not be quality to another person, but there's often a lot of overlap on that. And we can say that quality is a little bit like the word art. It's something that's a little hard to define, but we know it when we see it. So if we think about quality products, we can think about the differences between people. Maybe somebody likes a Ferrari because it's very shiny, very fast. Maybe somebody likes another kind of car like a Fiat because it's more reliable, maybe takes more people into the car, whatever. So we can debate these things, which indicates that they are a personal preference.
We make Ferraris.
Next, yeah, thanks. So we talked about general quality. Now, what is quality in Eve? Is it an absence of bugs? Is it the user experience? Low lag, the look and feel, some beauty and elegance? Is it easy to use? Is that a criteria for Eve players? Or is it more focused on complexity? Does it have to do with social networking? And does the product exceed our expectations and your expectations? That's a key criteria. Next, please. So, quality, our definition of quality is using reason, logic, and imagination to find solutions rather than simply finding problems. We need to think a bit outside of the box and look for good solutions to any issues that we have. And that is the definition of quality, not just finding bugs and fixing them.
We find defects and such, but it's all about, like Kurt said, quality is about perception and finding solutions. So how do we do it? We look at Eve as a game to be real. It's real to our players. Losing a star base, is a real loss, like if your bike gets stolen or something. It feels real, and it's supposed to. And we want to listen to our players and, know what you think and get your guys' feedback and act on that, because we absolutely do care about this. So we want to know what you want from the game, and we want to make you guys a playground that you can, enjoy, and feel real. Next slide, please. So, we aim to do the impossible. We try to break those boundaries that we normally set in our own heads. We normally define our own boundaries as such, and we try to go a little further and make it much better. And so our slogan is just do it. All right, on to QA heroes. Kurt, you can take that one.
Sure. We have actually, the QA department is a little split up. We have contractors in India that handle some regression testing for us. We have a QA team in Shanghai, and of course we have a team here in Iceland. Here's our team, slow down a bit. Here's our team at Mindfire in India. And there are names there that I won't attempt to pronounce, so we can go on to the next slide.
They don't just eat, they also test.
Yeah. We let them eat sometimes. So QA heroes also are our team in Shanghai, of course, and here are some of them, along with a couple more that are actually visiting us now.
Yeah, Leon is here.
Yeah, Leon is here. Isn't Bing here as well?
No.
No, okay, sorry. Now, onto our team in Iceland. Here are our two female testers, Anna and Anne, trying to hide from us as usual. Stuart and Eysteinn. Here we have Kenny and Hafthor. They're really close, as you can see. Kevin and Henrik, not so close. And Stefan and Ryan. This is on Silly Hat Day. Shay and Raki.
Raki's being strangled.
Yes.
The blue screen of death!
Patrick and Alex experiencing trouble. Jay having his breakfast. And there are Finnur and Svavar. And of course, Carlos and Devin in front of our nice fish tank. So, Hafthor.
Hi, I'm Hafthor, and my main job is in QA is to test Eve. But I'm going to talk about how the production of Eve is changing. We used to develop software like most other companies do, and it works fine, but it has some flaws. The biggest flaw is that it's a very departmentalized effort. You get game designers doing their thing, and then the programmers take over, and they then complete their code and bring it over to us, which means that when we're testing it and we find something wrong, they're already onto something else, and we're kind of breaking up their time if we bring some issues to them, which is not a good model to go by. So it goes a little bit like this. You have ideas that are being funneled by the producers into what game designers spend their time on, and then it goes forward until release. And going back and forth in this model is kind of hard. And this is very, very slow and ponderous. It's shifting focus is really hard because everything is kind of very, very long-term, if you will. What we're moving over to is agile development. Some of you may have heard of agile. It's a very popular software development process at the moment. And we've been trying it out, and we really like it. Mostly because CCP is kind of agile to begin with. We've always been, our main pride has been that we can do pretty much anything and turn over really fast. But as we grow, we need a better process to define that and keep the rules in place. And the best thing about it from my side is that QA tends to be the people that know what the game should be like. And we get to be in that process right from the get-go with Agile, because you create teams that focus on one feature, and they don't let go of that feature until they're happy with it. And so instead of having each department doing their thing and then trying to sort of come to a conclusion as to where we should cut, the team just handles it all on their own. So we have a more parallel system where you'll have one team that has a producer or a product owner, as it's called in Agile, and they pull things in from that list of things to do, and they do them until they're satisfied, and everyone's happy, and then that's done, and they can start working on something else. And while that's happening, another team is doing something else. So even though you have the same release dates, you have to schedule those far in advance because marketing is also doing their thing, which doesn't even come into this. But yeah, you can have the same release date, but you can always release on that day confident of having quality product to release, because you're not doing them all at once and sort of throwing them in between yourselves. They're done when you think they're done, and then you can release. But when are they done?
All right, so in agile development, the teams are encapsulated. They control themselves. They are like a black box to management. When they plan, we plan sprints for 2 to 3 weeks. When we plan our sprints, the team gets together, they get a prioritized list of features, and they pick features they can commit to delivering in those 2 weeks. And then they work on these features and commit to it and deliver. Maybe not all of them, but then we know early on, we know it in 2 weeks if we are behind schedule. And they finish their features, but our deadlines are fixed. We are releasing on a specific date. So basically the teams will roll out their features. The team consists of QA and programmers and game design and content people. They have a shared responsibility to deliver the features in 2-week increments. So when it's time to release, we basically ship those features that are ready from the prioritized backlog. We promise, we don't promise. We want to make A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but maybe we can only deliver A, B, C, D. But we deliver it as a quality product, and we know exactly how we are progressing on the path to release. So we are we ready to ship? Yes, we are ready to ship these features, but not those. So maybe some people can say, hey guys, you're delivering half a ship. Well, okay, it may be half of what we talked about earlier, but it's quality features that we are delivering. I mean, that ship is floating, although it's not really quality look. I couldn't find a better picture of a nice looking ship that is cut in half, but that's the whole idea. So, on the bug cycle, instead of when you're done 90% with the project, and then at the end you're discovering this flood of bugs and there's a lot of extra work to be done, those bugs get discovered in the sprints, and the features are complete when the sprint ends in 2 to 3 weeks. And that's really the whole idea. So we don't have this huge, increase in bugs at the end, a lot of extra hours to crunch out the bugs. So it's a better model for everybody, and also gets, like Hafi said, QA involved much sooner in the process from the start. And a shared responsibility, not any of the throw it over the wall, QA will find the issues. All right, next slide, please. So the key, though, is when you give this team the ability to have self-control, they commit to do A, B, and C. All right. They control themselves. There's no manager going in there and telling them what to do. The team is in control. But then they deliver stuff. We don't want the team to make an awesome feature and then deliver it, and it isn't really finished. The team thinks, well, it works on my machine. Well, that's not good enough in Agile. You're bound to fail if people have that attitude, because we can't have a long QA cycle after the Agile development. So we had to sit down and discuss, really, okay, what does it mean to be done? There are some definitions out there on the web, what is done, but really each company has to define its own done criteria when a feature delivered from a sprint is actually done. So we talk about being done, or done, or done. So I'm talking about here done. That means the feature is done. So, of course, the code has to be implemented, of course. I mean, and the content has to be created, and the art assets as well. We're not talking about, you know, huge design documents and all those extra deliverables. The team really controls those. Well, customer support will need some documentation and so forth, but the real key is that the team is focusing on deliverables that can be shipped. So, implemented. And we also have this rule of peer review, which is a very good rule. There is always another programmer or another content creator or another artist that actually reviews what the other person has done. On code, doing a code review, you can find so many, you know, you can find bugs quite easily that way. It's just much cheaper and much less effort than finding them later on in a manual test process. And also people can review designs, and it's easier to keep the architecture intact. And of course, knowledge transfer, which is a key. You can hook up, you know, senior and junior people and so forth, and pair people together. Unit tests have to be written. We have not written unit tests for Eve, you know, from its conception, but we are now doing it for new features. We're not doing it for the more legacy code, but code that we touch and we are working on. We write unit tests, and so features being delivered from a Scrum team has a set of unit tests as well written. The code has to be integrated. It's not enough that it's, okay, it's done and it's on my machine. No, it has to be integrated into the main development lines for that release. Because it's one thing to have it sitting in a developer's sandbox somewhere, have it already there, and then it gets integrated after it's done, and then QA or another team gets it, then it doesn't work. So that work has to be done beforehand. Test scripts updated. We call this our manual regression test list. Basically, the feature, okay, was implemented. There's maybe not much documentation, but 6 months down the line, we need to regression test this stuff. And we have actually the people in India, they are running regression test cycles on this. They are not part of the Scrum teams, but they run the regression tests in parallel. So, of course, we have to update these regression tests with, you know, what needs to be tested for the new features. This is also part of the done criteria. It has to be demo ready. I mean, the team, after 2 weeks sprint, they have to be able to stand up here and present what they did to the rest of the company. And they stakeholders as such. And Singularity ready, yes. We not necessarily put it on Singularity at that time, because it really depends on, you know, when we want to start the public testing. But it's at least ready as such, the feature, for public testing. And we'll take questions in a little while. Yes.
What's a regression test?
What, good question. What is a regression test? Okay, keep throwing these terms around, expecting everybody to understand. Regression test means that we are testing that existing features, not the new features, the existing features still work as expected. It just tends to happen every now and then. When you change one thing, something else breaks. And the regression tests are supposed to catch the something else. Okay, support documentation, I mentioned that before, and then no critical or major defect, guys. You're not done if there's a critical defect on it. Well, some of the usability defects or more minor defect we can, okay, accept as such. It's good enough, it fits our quality criteria. But we will put those defects on the backlog to be prioritized maybe into another sprint at another time. So no criticals or majors. So this is our definition in engineering of done. And some groups, this is sort of the common denominator. Some groups can even take this definition further, but at least they have to implement this. Thank you. All right, Agile Cowboy. This is an example of an agile method that we used for Eve, because we have just recently been, actually slowly been moving into this agile world. And our next big expansion, summer expansion, is going to be done totally in this agile manner. But one example of an agile initiative that we did was the rollout of the stackless I/O and moving to a 64-bit architecture and doing the optimizations that you have seen over the last 3 months hitting tranquility. We did those basically in parallel with our main development, because like the release coming out on Tuesday, it's almost all of it is still done in a stage delivery waterfall model. But the cowboy thing, because we were sort of bypassing the waterfall model, moving into agile, doing stuff for Eve, we decided to call it cowboy. So we were going, yeehaw! We had like, sprint meetings every morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, 15-minute meeting, status, and we were like doing little increments, because rolling this stuff out, stackless I/O, was not really something that was feasible to do in a big release. We wanted to do it separate. And we had to do it in increments. We had to roll our stackless I/O to one node server first to see how it worked there, and then make some improvements to it, and then to 2, and to 4, eventually to the entire cluster. And we start mapping, busy solar system to those nodes and seeing how they perform and doing all that analysis. So it was an incremental process that took some time. And the stackless I/O, you maybe heard the term, it's a very markety term as such, but what it really is, it's about replacing our network infrastructure as to we were experiencing a random delay when packets were being sent between nodes on the cluster, and also from the client into the cluster. And it was a random delay until the request from the client, for example, or another node in the cluster, got to the servers it was requesting. And with stackless I/O, we replaced that infrastructure. We moved over from our old network infrastructure, we called JetBite, into stackless I/O, which allowed us then to actually compile our code for 64-bit, because our old network infrastructure was not compatible with 64-bit, so we were actually stuck. As soon as we rolled our stackless I/O, and we were able to roll out a 64-bit cluster, giving us more memory. That's what it was all about. Okay, now you have more people in GDA that are not getting stuck than before. And some of you read the dev blog about this. And when we rolled it out, first stackless I/O onto GDA, we were all excited, and going for it. And we had 1,400 people in GDA, and then we ran out of memory. And then, okay, we ran out of memory. Cowboy, next sprint cycle, okay, let's attempt to go for 64-bit. But going back, looking at stackless I/O, this graph here, the top graph shows the network latency of packets being sent from client to server or between nodes in the server cluster, and before we had stackless I/O. And the graph below shows you the network latency after we deployed stackless I/O. And the scale here is in seconds. It's up to 250 seconds. And you can see how, especially under higher load, how unpredictable it was, the delivery of the packet to the receiving node. It ranged from, a fraction of a second up to 250 seconds. So for us, rolling out stackless I/O and having a constant, delay of only a fraction of a second between the nodes, regardless of load. Okay, we have, of course, a performance issue in a highly loaded system today, but it's not due to stackless I/O anymore. This was our main bottleneck in the server. So for us, this was huge. And now we actually have a constant, as you see in the lower graph, predictable latency of sending packets between nodes or from the client to the server. Actually, the stackless I/O feature is not in the client, but it will be, soon. Tuesday. And but the big improvement of performance is, of course, on the cluster itself, rolling up stackless I/O there. All right, next slide, please. Okay. The bug lifecycle. Who in here has filed the bug report? Awesome.
Keep them up.
Keep them up. Okay. Can you come up here?
Hang on. So, I'm the bug hunter. I'm a volunteer that checks out that bug and sees if it's good enough, if it fits. Well, it kind of needs to fit into this mold. It may not be good, but I'll try and make it fit and see if I can give the devs some info on why I think this is actually something they should look at. And then, well, okay.
Don't need to run it in. Just
I can't really write because I don't have a microphone.
Just pretend you're right.
Yeah. Thank you. So, off you go.
So he put the reproduction steps on the back of the jacket.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. We've got a bug here. You are my bug, and yeah, this isn't exactly what we're
This is
looking for.
QA, checking out the bug from the bug hunter.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you're definitely a bug that needs to get fixed right away. So I'm going to write some instructions down here for our developer. Let him know what we should have. And then I'll send you on over to a programmer called Shay.
Hello, Mr. Bug. Right. Okay, cool. Much better. I'm sure QA will be happy with that.
What is he doing here? Okay, we've still got the original issue, and he's added some new features, including a Von Dutch hat, which wasn't even cool when it was cool. Let's see, no, this is absolutely not what we're looking for. Maybe I wrote some poor instructions, maybe he was having a bad day, but we're gonna give Shay a better idea of what we actually want and see if he can figure it out. All right, back you go.
Hello again. Oh, right. Okay. Let's just get rid of that. Those are wrong too. And he's right. This really just does not suit. Much better. Excellent. I'm sure QA will be happy with this.
This looks better. I think that this, this is exactly what we were looking for. So we can go ahead and schedule that one for release.
All right, I'm the release engineer, and all right, we will port you in here. Okay, you're in our staging environment, and this is actually so nice that we are going to release you right away onto our server as a hotfix. There you go.
Yeah, I want my jacket back. No, keep that.
That was that.
Nope.
No, oh,
Wrong.
no,
End.
oh. Here we go.
Managers go away.
We are supposed to know PowerPoint, you know. There you go.
Okay, we have a number of tools that we use inside QA to make testing a little bit easier. I thought I would show you a couple of them. Yeah, I hate this mouse when I can't see the other screen. Just get rid of this. And okay, if you saw Torfi's lecture yesterday, you may have noticed this nice little bar. This is called Insider. We have here a whole lot of really, really cool tools that help us test Eve. These are our benchmarks. What we use these for is there are a set series of actions that can be carried out by the client. While we're doing it, we record CPU cycle usage in both user time and kernel time. We record memory usage, we record frame rate, we record basically, if you know anything about the Windows management instrumentation in Windows, that records like file operations, queuing, all of that kind of stuff. It all gets recorded by this. It all goes into a nice big database, and then we can run comparisons on how one build performs compared to another. Specifically, the frame rate, memory, and CPU are our primary targets. So we do all sorts of checks on that. I won't run them, they actually take quite a bit of time to run. Right, Another one is fitting your ships all the time can be a real pain. So I've got my nice little, it's running off a small laptop, it's a little slow. Nice little fitting that I've got here. And this is one of our common test fits. We use this for testing the different regression tests for NPC aggression and Concord aggression and kill rights. So we have two ships fitted up like this that go off and try and shoot each other in the different areas and make sure we get the right aggression flags. We also have another fitting that we commonly use for the Ferox. Sorry, I'm just trying to... Oh, sorry, sure. It's a little hard to see here. Switch setup. And we should be on. Boom. Pardon? Here's the cool thing. Who here's used the comparison tool that came to Eve about? That started in Insider. The content people liked it so much they decided to make it a feature. Content have been looking at this lovely feature we wrote for our testers and trying to put a nice wrap around it for you guys. I don't know when it's been scheduled, but I know they do have a design around it. So you may be seeing this shortly. A lot of stuff that's been through our testing stuff has come to the client for you, the players. Now, come here, Mr. Mouse. Jessica. This is our development environment. Custom written to plug into Eve while it's running, Python, the whole thing. We can execute commands in here. One of the other things we've been working on is our unit test structure. One of the things we found is it's very, very hard for our artists to understand and test all of the bits and pieces that goes into making a nice model in Eve, whether it's a ship, a Stargate, a station. So we went out, and one of our nice little programmers, who's sitting over in the corner, wrote an entire test framework for art assets. We can now script the testing of all of our art assets, make sure that ships have appropriate damage locators so that they get hit in the correct place by enemy fire, the flames show up in the correct place, the textures are all of appropriate size for the size of the ship, all sorts of really, really cool stuff like this, so that the artist, once he's put it all together in here, can scene and models is the go. And he gets a nice report. And this one's, we've got a nice failure, which tells you that the test translation curves in this model are actually incorrect. So before he even exports it from our development environment to be processed into the nice, concise model and into the stuff file, he knows that he's got something to fix. This has allowed us to fix a number of issues with different ships and is a continuing effort to enhance this suite, make it better, make it faster. We plug it into our continuous integration so that we get reports every morning on the state of our art assets.
So we can kill the artist who didn't run this test.
Yeah. Okay. Testing tools. Don't know how many of you saw Haldor's graphics lecture yesterday. You may have seen this. This is a tool we've been developing. It's called Heat Map. What you're seeing here is the texture and texel density on an object model. Green is good. Yellow is acceptable. It's perfectly reasonable. Orange is where we're doing multiple texels into a single texel, and it's really wasting graphic cycles. Red is, in general, really bad. And I can't show it here because I don't actually have the build for it, but you can rotate this round and see how it changes as you're viewing it from different angles. So this is an interactive tool for our artists to see how the specular maps and the texture maps and all the different maps and graphics that go into making a ship model or a gate model or even an asteroid. What the quality of the actual resultant product is. Okay.
Okay, we talked a little bit about how we've got 2 QA managers here, and there are some changes going on in the QA department. As it stands now, the QA structure is basically a single department divided into test management, QA engineering, and deployment. We've decided to change this and split it up because, as Shay was pointing out, we have some great tools, and they're one of the strengths of our testing. This split will allow the people creating those tools to focus on that, while the QA department that remains will be able to focus on testing. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're splitting it to Eve QA, which will handle maintenance, expansion, and the web.
I should stand over here and you over here.
Yeah. And then also engineering services. Eve QA will be my department, and Laver will manage the engineering services, including automation and tools and release engineering, as he was the guy that released the bug earlier. He will be the guy that releases things into the game. This is really extremely exciting to us because it gives us that additional focus. I would say that this is one of the more exciting things to me. The most exciting thing to me, though I've been here for 2 weeks, is the amazingly competent and dedicated testing team that we have. There's some of them sitting up there and a few down here. So they're doing things that test teams 3 times their sizes don't do. And a big part of that is their competency. Another big part is all the tools that we have. So this allows us to focus on that even more. In the future, we have, we're going to be able to, in this QA department, the new QA department that removes the tools and engineering, we will be able to focus our QA people on into specific teams, onto specific tasks, putting them into sprints, as we mentioned before with the agile development. We'll definitely be getting new tools and test automation, and we will be one of the main customers for engineering services. We'll simply say, we want a tool that does this, and they'll create it for us. We'll be creating an environment for load testing, moving over to agile development, as we mentioned before, and yes, we'll be expanding the test team. So we'll have even more testers, and they'll be more focused, and we'll have additional tools. QA then will be much more effective.
Awesome.
Tools. Got another one for you. Who here's ever put up a Starbase? How many books did you manage to read while doing it? You'll have to give this poor laptop a bit of time. It's not the fastest. Gets the job done, though.
Can you sing us a song, Shay?
You don't want to hear me sing. That's not looking good.
Yep.
Aha. It's a little hard to see here.
So while he's doing this, let's have some questions.
Right.
Are you ready? Uh-huh. There you go.
So, my Starbase, which I recorded from a random one I found on TQ. Basically what it does, it takes a Starbase image that you already have, records it to a file, and then deploys it. We've had some queries from Content Again about scripting this one up, and this is another one they're keen to get out to you guys. So it'll allow you to actually write down how you want to lay out your Starbase, and then as long as you have the modules in your cargo hold, we'll just take them out and start deploying them. You'll still have to be there, but it means your reading won't be interrupted while you have to click anchor. And now I get to do the really, really cool thing. No, it's this one, I get around it because I can tell it to anchor them in 1 second, but it still does them one after the other. That's just my cleanup mod. The problem with that one is it cleans everything off the grid. It's rather indiscriminate. So yes, more tools that we're hoping to bring to you. You're not getting the note, no.
All right, let's have some questions.
I was actually more wondering about one of the annoying bugs that I've been reporting and been on the forum for so long, about heavy missiles continuing to fire even though the module was turned off, or attempting to fire.
Okay, yes. Happy, you probably want to answer that one.
Me? So you mean that the graphic keeps going, well, even though the module is off?
I find a missile, destroy the target, missile launch is closed off, but the missile still attempts to fire. It still keeps firing into either warpath system or going into the starbase.
Yes, I remember seeing this at some point. It's in there somewhere in the system, and you know we'll get to it in the end. That's all I can really say. I don't have any specifics on.
We've seen this happen under high load as well, and it's very difficult to reproduce this. It happens every now and then. If it's the issue that I think you're talking about. Yeah.
I can do it anytime you want.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Come tomorrow morning. 9 a.m.
Come show us.
There's 2 computers at the top there.
Okay.
Log
Okay.
in there,
Awesome.
Okay.
see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, anyone else?
How do you interact with general tech support, the people that support the day-to-day running? Myself and somebody else had the same fault, but we didn't know it until we talked to each other a week later with Starbase management, as it turned out. And we were both told, this is the first time we've heard about it.
Yes.
We
Yes.
can't repeat it because it's a random fault.
Yeah. We did some organizational change in QA about a year ago, where we had dedicated people focus on issues on Tranquility. It turned out the team was so, focused on the next big expansions, and the GM had to come, running and waving their hands and everything to get our attention sometimes. So, and we needed really to stay on TQ as well, know what the current issues of the GMs are, look at the logs on Tranquility, and also be proactive when we saw errors in the logs on Tranquility. And so we started this team that we call the live QA team. And of course we were all alive, but this term somehow came around because they were looking at the live environment. And this sort of started from the grassroots. There were people in the team that sort of raised this to me, and we should do this. We should just have people focus on this and get them off the next big thing and have them just focus on Tranquility. We did that. We started with 1 guy, then went to 2. And this sprung to life as to the GMs were so interested. We started having regular meetings with the GMs. We started a mail list for the GMs and the QA live people. and operations then as well. Now we have this live team in QA, in the Game Master department, and in operation. And these guys work together.
Operations being the guys that actually run
That
the hardware.
run the hardware, yeah, exactly.
for
So
teams.
we have this cross-departmental, live team now. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
You had a question as well.
Yes. There was talk about the future plans for quality assurance with a testing team and an engineering team. Can you explain what the role of the engineering team will be? Will it be just making for quality assurance, or is that the team that will make tools for the entire CCP group?
Yeah, for the entire CCP group. The engineering team, we started that because we felt we needed more programmers, in QA to work on these tools, because we always had to go to the developers and please make us this tool, please. And of course they were busy with the features, so we had to. So we actually, I got permission to hire a programmer. Shay was the first one on board in that team as an engineer working on the benchmarks. That was the first tool that we rolled in. And then we took over the Insider tool from the developers. And even, community people have been working on the Insider tools before. And then the team started growing. And now we had the structure of QA. We had people, doing these tools. And then now we are rolling in unit tests because the people in Atlanta have been doing test-driven development for quite some time. And they were already in that framework. But we want to take that in here. So we looked at, okay, we have these guys who are actually working on writing tools, putting together, frameworks for unit tests, and working with Atlanta. I mean, let's just put more power into that. And as the QA department is, quite big in the company, and we manage the tools, the Unicode framework, and we have deployment, configuration management of the code and the content, and the release management, and the test management. So we had these three departments. Of course, test management was by far the biggest. So we decided to split the two, so I can focus on engineering services, building that up, making that into an even stronger team in terms of influence in the company, as we will be responsible for all configuration management of code across continents as well, and ensuring that we have policies for using the unit test frameworks. We communicate that to the developers, they use them, and we have power to write tools because we need a lot more of tools like these. And of course, there's always manual testing, because if you always use tools, you don't really experience the gameplay per se. So of course there needs to be a balance. But anything that speeds up the productivity of the tester, and even of course the developer as well, so they don't check in crappy art assets or code, have unit tests for. So that's really where we're focusing. We actually formally announced this 2 weeks ago when Kurt came on board in the company. And now we are, I'm still responsible for the next release coming out on Tuesday, and then Kurt is going to take that over, and I will go full force with the engineers down that road of engineering services. And I foresee that to, we are now proving. I thought I had to advertise engineering services. Hey guys, we are here for your help. Right away when we announced this, the requests came pouring in from all of engineering of stuff that we need to do. So I'm really excited about it. This was a very long answer. So did I answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
Anyone else?
How many defects have been made this year?
Like we say, quality is not about the number of defects. You don't measure quality by the number of defects we have in the system as such. Defects this year.
Defects this year that have just
You
made
mean-
it out to TQ,
well, you have to
or
define-
internal ones as
Do you
well?
mean
It's-
external defects? Because of course when you're working on projects, there's a constant, cycle of defects. You mean defects of issues found on Tranquility, you mean, reported in? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, reported in from external places.
From external places, bug hunters, players, and so forth? We have about 5 or so a day, roughly. I don't have it scientific down, but that's sort of my feel for it.
Yeah, generally it sits around 5 to 10 bug reports a day come in, whether or not they're all on the same issue or not. whether or not they're for an existing defect varies.
Right after a release, we have more normally, and then that rate slows down. But then
when
also
we're
we are
putting-
tuning all the time, like the server. We deploy a hotfix to the server every week. And when we were doing the Yahoo and the cowboy stuff, we did like 3 hotfixes a week, very easy. So yeah, there is constantly something, and EVE is definitely not a bug-free game, but it's not about that. The important thing is that people feel they enjoy the game, although the little glitches.
I can tell you though, they're definitely less than last year.
But if you take like
That's
Kurt's
something we
example,
definitely know.
Kurt had the Porsche and the Fiat. I mean, I'm sure the Porsche has more bugs in it than the Fiat does. But, you know, the feel of driving a Porsche is better. Of course, and the maintenance of Porsches is higher than maintenance cost of Fiats. But it's a question of the feel is important. And of course, we want to fix all bugs. Definitely. We keep, though, we call it the defect deficit. We make sure that if we collect in deficit, we pay it back. Yes?
Another one. How important are the bug reports and the bug hunters for the entire process of quality assurance?
They are very important as such. The bug reports themselves, of course, come from players. There needs to be a venue for the players. Some people file petitions when there should be bug reports. There's sometimes confusion about that. But the bug reports are not petitions, and there needs to be this venue. And the bug hunters themselves, they are very important to us as well as a separate, unit, which is not, because we get so heavily involved and we are totally inside the bubble. And they help us, with giving us a fresh perspective and come up with ideas and suggestions that we may not have thought about. It sort of gives you this outside, it's an alpha team of testers, the bug hunters, and every good product needs a strong alpha team.
We actually have a round table later
Yeah,
tonight
at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, where we'll be discussing what's involved in being in the bug hunter team and how you can get involved, and also any other QA questions you have.
The bug hunters are a really crucial part of our team, and we will be making them even a bigger part of the new QA organization. And I mean, as for value for money, the bug hunters are the best thing we've got going.
So, one last question?
No?
No? Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.